We started saying that climate change had to be the #1 job of the United States. I felt very good saying that the first days of my campaign. I feel very good saying that now. And the reason is this has just become more urgent. 1 billion tons of ice melted in Greenland the other day. But we also have had so many people I've met who are inspiring, who want us to act, who've helped me. We had 130,000 people help me in this campaign. But it's become clear that I'm not going to be carrying the ball. I'm not going to be the president, so I'm withdrawing tonight from the race.
Well, that was Washington Governor Jay Inslee announcing the end of his presidential run. The 68-year-old says that he is going to seek a third term as governor. He made climate change the primary focus of his 2020 campaign and pushed Democrats to discuss the issue more. Earlier this week, he reached to the donor threshold to qualify for next month's debate, but he was not close to reaching the polling threshold. Let's bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, I know you've been following this incredibly closely. What do you think was the stall out in Inslee's campaign?
Well, I think reality intervened. You mentioned that he reached the donor threshold but wasn't going to make that debate stage next month. And that's really a challenge for a lot of these candidates, and a reason why I think we're going to see more dropouts over the course of the next few weeks as candidates realize that they're not making that debate stage and their prospects are kind of dwindling at this point. But Jay Inslee got into this race with one cause, which was climate change. And you talk to his campaign and you talk to other Democrats in this race, they feel like that he made an impact on this race in terms of the issue. It also raises a question about how governors are doing in this primary process. He is a governor. He announced today he's running for a third term. Other governors in this race have not really been faring well at all. John Hickenlooper dropped out of the race recently as well. There are questions about Steve Bullock from Montana. He's not polling very well either. So some of these candidates are kind of seeing the writing on the wall and finding out where they can actually make an impact.
And as you mentioned, climate change, certainly a main topic. Do you feel as though, even though he is dropping out, that he has spurred the other Democrats to, in fact, talk about this issue?
Well, it's interesting to hear from all the other Democrats when he dropped out of the race. Most of them commented on how much of an impact he had made by making climate change his #1 issue. In September, CNN is going to be hosting a climate change town hall for a lot of these candidates to participate in, which just shows you how important this issue is for voters. And we know from talking to voters on the ground and in polling that this is a top concern that they have, particularly among young people. So let's watch for who Inslee eventually endorses, if he does at all, and whether other candidates try to step into this void that he's created.
Sure. And meanwhile, Senator Bernie Sanders has released the details of his own 16 deal plan. So his new $16 trillion Green Deal plan. What would you say about that in particular that stands out to you?
Right. Well, $16 trillion, that price tag alone is really striking, because that's the biggest price tag that we've seen from all the candidates. So certainly that's going to be something that will likely be raised as a concern among some voters. What it does, it aims to cut fossil fuels by 2050. It also will create a climate change as a national emergency. Also, he says that this will create 20 million new jobs. Now, this comes as there is large support within the party for the Green New Deal, which was proposed by Senator Markey and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez earlier this year. So this is the first time that we're really seeing Bernie Sanders use the Green New Deal kind of framework in his own proposals. Several other candidates, though, have introduced their own climate change proposals. They're by and large similar in terms of the goals. The differences are kind of how fast they get there and, of course, how much it costs. Bernie Sanders costs the most.
Do you think that this is an opportunity for Bernie Sanders to move into Inslee's space to be kind of the climate change guy?
Sure. It raises a good question about Inslee moving out and whether there's a candidate who can kind of fill that void. Bernie Sanders has been talking about these issues and has also trying to find his place in this primary as someone who stands out. I think that what we're seeing, though, in this race is that while voters are concerned about issues like climate change, they're concerned about health care, they're concerned about a lot of these different issues, their #1 priority is defeating Donald Trump. So it's incumbent upon these candidates to make their case against the president and why they feel they would be best suited for that.
Now, you mentioned Hickenlooper a few moments ago. He's not going to run for Senate. What do you think are some of the issues he would face as far as his opposition is concerned.
Right. Well, earlier this year, lots of Democrats wanted him to not run for president and wanted him to run for Senate. He was reelected in Colorado, so he won 2 statewide elections there, and they felt like he would be a good candidate. Since he didn't get in, other candidates did. So now that he's in, he would have to kind of try and clear the field. Polls do show him leading his Democratic challengers and also leading Cory Gardner, the Republican incumbent there. There are questions about whether the presidential primary run will have any impact on his Senate race and whether he can kind of get through this primary after campaigning as a moderate. It's notable that the current governor of Colorado, is a very liberal Democrat, and so that kind of shows where the party might be there.
Now, speaking about opposition, let's talk about President Trump, because now we are hearing that Joe Walsh, a conservative talk show host, who also has had some controversy in the past, he's been kicked off of his radio show for racial slurs and such, but what do you think about him jumping into the race? Is that a long shot?
It looks like a long shot. While there's a lot of people in the Never Trump crowd that want a challenger to Donald Trump, it's really important to note that Trump really has a hold on his party. You look at polling, and he, 80 to 85% of Republicans like him and support what he's doing. A challenger would be very difficult at this point, especially someone like Joe Walsh, who only served 1 term in Congress. He was elected in that Tea Party wave, but soon defeated very quickly thereafter. He has kind of made a name for himself in being a top critic of Donald Trump, and there were some who thought that those Tea Party credentials could help him along. But look at people like Bill Weld, who's already in the race, and some others thinking about it. They really have not gained much traction. And this comes as Donald Trump and the RNC, the Republican National Committee, have really had a hold on the party, and they've been, trying to prevent primary challenges and securing kind of state primaries to be favored to the president. So it's a very uphill climb.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much.
Thank you.